Hit the live button.
All right, we're live. Good morning, y'all.
Good morning.
Yeah, Dr. Kiltz doing exercise.
I was trying to get comfortable. I'm usually standing up, but I'm sitting down. Morning. Beautiful day in the morning, afternoon, evening. Also all around the globe. We got Blaise here today, my brother.
Hello.
And Dr. Nelson.
Yes. Well, I think there's an interesting bit to talk about.
Yeah. Blaise was vegan before. And we got to talk about showering.
Yeah. Oh man, there's a lot of things. There are so many things that I've been experimenting with. I try everything just because I might as well see what does and doesn't work for myself, and then I keep what works and I discard what doesn't.
Nice.
Let me see if I could turn
like an N=1 sort of experiment, a self-experiment.
Yeah. Well, it helps. It helps because I get to see in real time, like even some blood results, for instance, will tell me, and not only that, a GI map, because I had a video on that as well,
wow.
which I think I made it with Dr. Lenski or something. And we actually showed it that there was something that was damaging the gut lining originally from the GI map results, but at the same time, I was healing it doing something, which was pretty crazy.
Oh, wow.
He was like, well, it looks like you actually did have damage, but this damage is actually slowly going away at the same time. I was like,
what do you think the damage was from?
That's a good question. I think the damage was from gut dysbiosis, most likely from I had problems a lot before with plants. I didn't know at that time that I had problems with them, but I did have a lot of problems. For instance, I had problems with mangoes. Mangoes would make my stomach go absolutely out of this world. It was horrific, but I didn't know it at that time. I just sort of thought like, oh, my stomach just seems to hurt today for some reason when I'm using the bathroom or something like that. But I think most likely I was probably a lot of beans, actually. I think beans earlier on absolutely destroyed my stomach. I think basically lectins completely destroyed my stomach because I had a lot of beans back in the day, a lot of this like baked beans stuff, or the brown beans, that one. I just and thinking about it now, it's not good, but
well, maybe you can introduce yourself to those that are listening, both on our YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Dr. Kiltz, and also our Kiltz Mighty Tribe.
So I'm Blaise. I do YouTube. I do YouTube mostly on. I do a lot of my channel is actually health based, but I sort of branch out into other things every now and then. So I try to learn. Man, there's too much. There's too much that I branch out into. Maybe I branch out into too much, but I try to stick with mostly health related stuff at first, and I'm thinking about going into a little bit of philosophy. I do a lot of self-experimentation, and I talk about self-experimentation science, basically. And not only do I talk about the self-experimentation science, I try it myself. So for instance, there will be, let's say somebody makes an argument and they say, like, they wouldn't ever do this, but this could just be an example. Like, hey, eating plastic is healthy, right? That makes no sense. But they could make that sort of an argument. And then I would try to find the science behind that argument, or whatever this like ridiculous argument is, for instance. And then I will try it myself. Now, do I think plastic is healthy? No. But an example could be like showering, or it could be brushing your teeth, or I just try these sort of things and I go like, hey, does it work? Does it not work? Like there's a lot of other things, but those are just like two things off the main start. There's also deuterium and deuterium depleted water, which in my opinion, I have actually experienced a huge difference with, strangely. Oddly enough, you can actually taste the difference, in my opinion. So there's a difference there's a difference between deuterium depleted water, the taste. At least when you're carnivore, there's a clear, distinct taste. I've noticed because I tested it with my dad actually and my mom. We basically would test ourselves, and we would like pour deuterium depleted water and non-deuterium depleted water into a regular just glass water, and we'll see who can tell the difference. And I was able to tell the difference every single time, and I tested it 5 times. I got it basically like 5 times in a row. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And it kind of makes me wonder the effect that carnivore has on the mitochondria, which also affects not only basically, I guess you could say the effectiveness.
Well, let me ask a couple pointed questions.
Yeah.
Would you tell everyone your name?
Okay. My name is Blaise Vanderplug, but I just go by Blaise V on YouTube.
Where do you live?
Currently I live in California, but I usually travel around the world my entire life. So I've never actually been in one place. Where
do you live in California?
Currently I live in Merced, middle of nowhere.
Central Valley.
Yeah, basically.
I'm from Los Angeles, Tulare, Sacramento, Davis. Those are my haunts in my life growing up. How young are you?
I am 25 years old. Just turned 25.
Young.
Yeah, very, very young. I had to start carnivore early for a very good reason. Thank God I did.
Well, okay, so tell us what got you. What was your evolution, nutrition and diet wise, that got you from where you were to where you're at?
Okay, so this is a very strange story, I guess. Originally, how I started with being bored out my mind, basically. So I had absolutely nothing to do at that time, and it sucked, but I was really bored and I had nothing to do. So I said, what am I going to do at this time? I need to do something, and I have no idea what to do. I was stuck at home. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't play. In my case, I play video games competitively, and I'm very, very good at that.
Awesome.
I couldn't do that as well. Sports, I couldn't even do sports. Like I couldn't do so many of the things that I did do at that time. There were some. At this point, I cut out some things, but regardless, I'll get to that maybe later. So I looked at that and I said, okay, what am I going to do? I am bored out of my mind. I need to find something. So I spent like hours and hours and hours on YouTube, probably 10 hours at least minimum a day, if not 12, trying to find basically something to throw my time into. And I ended up going down health. Now, I didn't realize what this health journey would entail at that time, but I was just going down health, and I'll say like, yeah, let's go with the healthiest possible thing. And after enough digging on YouTube, I was before basically eating pescatarian or some version of vegan, where I was eating just like tons and tons of berries. Oh my God, I was eating so much berries. I was eating so many berries. I was eating plants all the time, and I was almost never eating meat. But after my YouTube journey, I didn't necessarily just go full meat yet. Sadly, I wish I did, but I didn't just go full meat yet. I was going down the fasting journey. So I originally was fasting and trying this whole fasting thing for about pretty much a year or 2 years. And my longest fast was about 10 days. So just 10 days, no food, only water with salt. And that was a really interesting experience. I would do these 10-day fasts, 7-day fasts, 3-day fasts regularly. And I saw benefit. I felt benefit. And I was like, wow, like I feel way better. Not only do I feel better, like I actually lost weight, because at that time I was 189. And right now I'm 149 or 159. I fluctuate based on water, but it's like a huge, huge gap. So basically 30 pounds of that was just fat, that white adipose, not really doing anything. I found that really good. So I said, okay, well, there's got to be more, but I was sort of stuck, and I didn't really know at that time where that journey would lead me until I saw carnivore. And I said, hey, you know what? I got to try this. Now, the person who originally introduced me, or who I saw carnivore from, was, at first, it was from a guy named What I've Learned on YouTube. And then after that, it was from Anthony Chafee. And then after that, there was a ton of other people who I looked into when it comes to carnivore. At that time, Benjamin Bickman, he was really big into fasting and sort of that kind of thing. He also was a lot about like the biochemistry and the science. So I went hard down that lane. I was like, I want to see what's here. I want to learn about this. He originally was probably my biggest, I would say he's my biggest contributor, because I'm so, at that time anyways, I was so science-based that I would just go straight down whatever path the science said. And I was like, hey, if the science says it, I will go straight at it. So the science said carnivore, or at least I thought it said carnivore. So I said, okay, you know what? We're just going straight carnivore. And we did. I went carnivore, and it worked. It worked miracles. I mean, in fact, I even have a shirt. I'm not sure if you can see it. I have a shirt that says carnivore. And my dad and mom got this out of inspiration. I thought that was pretty nice. And
there we go. I'm muted.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nelson. Dr. Bickman is great. Every time I listen to one of his, basically he gives a full lecture every time he has a video. I have a question for you. You said you may not be completely carnivore, but since when have you been
now?
You are now. Okay.
At the time, I wasn't.
How long have you now been fully carnivore?
Full carnivore? I've probably been 3 years, I'd say. Yeah, 3 years full carnivore at this point. It done wonders, by the way. And no, I have not had a heart attack.
And what has been the main, you mentioned a couple of things, but what has been the main health improvement that you have found?
Oh man, there's a lot of health improvements. My skin is one of them, but I guess we'll stick with my skin, because I made a pretty big video on that one. So I used to have like really bad acne. It was so bad that if I were to turn my head, this entire side of my face would be red, and this entire bottom side, I don't know why I had anyways so much acne like near my neck, but I mean, it was crazy. Like, I just had so much acne. I was looking at it like, this is at that time, I was looking at it like, this is uncurable. I'm never going to cure this. Even though they say like, oh, just go to the doctor, go to the dermatologist, do these treatments, right? I tried that. Didn't work. Didn't work at all. In fact, not only did it not work, I think it made my skin at that time even worse. So I was like, clearly there's something wrong here, because supposedly their whole treatment and all their stuff is backed by science. But I was also starting to think that their money was a really big contributor, because it wasn't fixing my problems. All they would do is they would just bring me back in, and I didn't like coming back in for no reason. And not only that, getting these treatments that hurt. They hurt a lot, by the way, because what they'll do is they'll put this thing over your eyes basically, and then they'll just blast your face with light. And the problem is, this light is very intense. Like, it's so intense to the point that even with the eye cover, you can feel like pain in your eyes while closing your eyes. It's you could feel and see the light through your eyes basically, because it's that.
Was it UV light treatments you were getting? Yeah,
basically I was getting these UV light treatments. Didn't work at all. Absolutely painful, by the way. They were terrible too.
That's usually reserved for fairly severe symptoms.
Yeah. So, hey, supposedly those are supposed to work, but they didn't work on me. And all it took was a diet change. Suddenly I went from...
Surprise.
Yeah. What a surprise.
I'm curious. Dr. Kiltz looks like he has a question, but
I also do.
Any of the dermatologists ever asked you, what's your diet? Or did they ever talk to you about diet? Avoid this or that?
Oddly enough, diet was not the main concern. They were just going, I heard a big thing of, oh, like it probably just runs in the family, because like your dad had it clearly from what we can see. It's like your dad had it. So it just must be in the family, just must be genetics, right? It's all a genetic problem.
Who didn't have acne as a teenager? Did
I
you,
didn't.
Dr. Kiltz?
I didn't have any acne.
No? Okay.
No.
Yeah,
But I have
I
to
have
ask Blaise a
acne.
question. And so how much were you washing your face when you had that acne, and how much do you wash your face now with your beautiful skin?
Good question. Before I was washing my face every day because I would take a shower every day, if not 2 times a day, by the way.
Oh,
And
wow.
not only that, at that time, because there was whole like cold shower sort of stuff, I was into the cold showering. And when I get extreme into anything, literally anything, I go to the max. So when I went extreme in this whole fasting thing, I went for fasting. I went like 10-day fasts regularly. By the way, it would be basically eating a ton and then fasting 10 days, waiting maybe 5 or 10 days before I repeat that. I was just insane about that. And same thing comes to showering. I didn't even try to hesitate. So that doesn't sound crazy, but I went from showering every day to, I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to try it because I saw this one guy. It was an Australian at that time. Australian on a, actually, apparently a big media sort of platform. And he was like, yeah, I'm a doctor. I don't shower and I feel perfectly fine. I haven't showered in 5 years. And I said, you know what? If this guy did it, I might as well try it. There's got to be something because this skin looks perfectly fine. Why not? Let's go for it, right? Let's go. I mean, I'm hopeless at this point. Nothing seems to be bettering it or making it better. And lo and behold, I try that and my skin definitely improves. I'd probably say, if anything, the biggest thing would be the flakiness improved. And I was looking at that like, wow, this is a huge difference. And I don't wash my face at all. This is maybe a shocker. I haven't washed my face in like probably over 1,000 days minimum, if not more.
Like any water whatsoever, like no water touches your face, or just soap?
No, there is no water that touches my face at all, basically. Not my hair. If anything, if water touches any part of me, it would probably be me drinking water, like drinking bottled water. I'm like really picky about the water that I have. I try to have usually, if it's present, I will have deuterium depleted water because I love the taste of that. I swear it tastes. This is gonna sound crazy on carnivore. Like if you're full carnivore and you've been carnivore for a while, deuterium depleted water will taste like grape juice. It'll taste sweet. I know it's weird. That's why I was like, what is going on? Because it's deuterium depleted, but there's clearly no sugar in it. Why does this taste like grape juice? Right? So, and I tried it with different deuterium depleted waters too. So that was like really weird. I don't know why that's the case, but your taste buds really get better, I guess, on carnivore. So, oh yeah, you have a question?
Blaise, what inspires you to do this crazy stuff? This shit. What get on YouTube, share your stories. Why are you doing this?
That's a really good question. So, I guess there's a lot of reasons now, but I would say one of the big ones was I've had, and a lot of people also probably have had similar experiences where they'll say like, hey, you know, I'm experiencing this problem, but I can't find the answer, right? Like, for instance, people will experience, for instance, let's say they experience carnivore and they see the benefits of carnivore, but they don't get all the benefits that they want, right? Like, what's the next step? Like, what's the next step? Because clearly there has to be a next step somewhere, right? And maybe the difference in that case would be like the detail or the precision of that carnivore. So, for instance, even if you're carnivore, some people, in my case, for instance, me as well, are a little bit more susceptible to white meat. So I can't necessarily have pork as much, and that has to be cut out of my diet in order for me to see like extremely enhanced results. And then I take that one step further. And then let's say somebody still has acne on carnivore, or they still have like skin issues on carnivore for some reason. What's the next step? In my opinion, that's no showering, because it worked wonders on my skin anyways. So I say, like, you know what, people, it helps a lot of people, actually, because I've gotten a lot of people, oddly enough, they definitely said like they saw benefits from cutting out showering. They, for instance, say like, I stopped showering so much and I actually saw benefits. I didn't go to my extreme degree where it's like, cut it out all completely, never shower again. But they definitely saw, like, for instance, they would only shower like once every 7 days, maybe even only once every 2 or 3 weeks. And they were like, wow, I'm actually seeing improvements. Like, there is clearly an improvement here, right? So I found that sort of interesting. And I'm glad too, because people actually experienced the benefits, and they said they experienced the benefits after me testing it on myself, because it's a pretty extreme thing to test, because most people, they're usually taught like, hey, you need to shower because you need to smell good and this sort of a thing, right? Well, you don't really need to, because I go to school like very, very often. I go to college at last year of college at this point, but I go to college basically every single day on the weekdays, I mean, and I don't get complaints about my smell, and I have to work with classmates regularly, so they don't complain about the smell. Yeah, that's been pretty interesting. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that I've done. I've also done not brushing my teeth, and by the way, you can only do that on carnivore. I'm gonna explicitly say that right now. I don't think you can do this if you eat sugar, any sort of carbohydrate. And yeah, anything related to basically starch, do not do this. Do not go not brushing your teeth. It will ruin your teeth, I'm pretty sure. But I have had people do that as well. And actually, there's this one girl on my channel. I remember she commented. She would usually comment a lot on my channel. And she was the one who said, I've tried this, and this seems to actually be helping me. Like, I've had really bad teeth problems, and I went to the dentist or orthodontist and whatever. They couldn't do anything. And I tried this, seemed to be helping. So I was like, wow, there's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's something. If she was seeing benefits, then that's good.
How often do most animals bathe?
That's a very good question. I don't know if you've ever threw your cat or dog in the bath, but usually when you try to, they go flying out of there unless you stick them in there.
Although a dog will jump in and enjoy, but the cat certainly will stay away.
Yeah,
for sure. And I can tell you that on carnivore, the body odor is pretty much gone. And I don't typically sort of jump in the shower all the time and do it's just sometimes just cold shower, rinse off, sort of like the wake up enjoyment that I love. And that's about it. And certainly, and a lot of because the plants ferment in the gut, and the fermentation creates, and then all the other, like the onions and the garlics and all the things, those chemicals just seep out our skin and you go everywhere, right? And that's the craziness. And then the fermentation goes out the rectum, anus, up through the esophagus, out through the mouth. So the microbes actually just they crawl everywhere. But the microbial growth is suppressed on a fatty meat carnivore diet, and so you have less fermentation. That's really the biggest change, I think. I agree with you.
Yeah. No, I definitely think you're right. Actually, in fact, I want to say that one. Actually, you said something else that was, I think, very important, which is they ferment, and after that, they go as a gas, and they can go basically up through the mouth. I think it dramatically affects the mouth microbiome. I mean, it's amazing. Like,
well, 100%, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the plants which feed the microbes, which allow them to flourish. I mean, that's called fermentation, making beer, alcohol, kefir, right? Right?
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. And so that's really the big game changer here, is recognizing that we're not fermenting in our gut.
Yeah. No, actually, you're definitely right. And that fermentation, by the way, just as a curiosity, anybody out there, comes from fiber, because you basically have to ferment fiber in order for it to break down. But as humans, we don't have a cecum. So our fermentation, I guess you could say, efficiency is very, very low, which is why you get this whole bloating thing usually. I did anyways. I got it all the time. You get this whole bloating thing when you eat a ton of fiber. It's because you're fermenting so much, and you're attempting, anyways, at the very best, to convert that fiber into short chain fatty acids, which your body is trying to use as energy. But there is a much more efficient way to get the short chain fatty acids. I think it's from butyrate.
Well, what does fermentation really make?
A couple of products, but
alcohol. Yeah. I mean, so all this short chain fatty acid bullshit. Okay, so if you ever see a lot of fat rising to the top of making alcohol, wine.
I haven't made alcohol before.
Well, but in general, fermentation of wine and beer, like when we talk about short chain fatty acids, okay, isn't that fat? Wouldn't you think it would coalesce and come to the top?
It would probably rise to, assuming that it's more less dense, it would rise to the top. I'm not too sure.
I thought fermentation makes alcohol.
I think there was different kinds of fermentation. So there was like, oh man, I just took this in microbiome too.
I don't know. That's why you're right to say what you said. I just disagree with it. I think we're wrong. Okay, everyone says that fermentation is so important to make butyrate and short chain fatty acids. But in fact, fermentation makes alcohol, aldehydes, heat, and gas and methane. Those are the products made by fermentation, not butyrate and short chain fatty acids. But that's what we're taught, right?
That could be. It could be the truth. I mean, it could be. It very well could be. Like I said, for me, I try as much to talk about the science. I could be wrong, by the way, on my channel.
Well, what if the science is wrong?
The science could be wrong. The science could be very wrong. Well, I mean, I tested. I do self-experimentation stuff, so I test on myself.
Well, I guess the science about carbohydrates and cholesterol is true, correct?
That depends on what science we're talking about. When it comes to cholesterol and heart attacks, I'm not entirely sure. Well, because I think that the VLDL, the only way that VLDL could be made from my assessment, would only be if triglycerides are high, and the only way you get triglycerides to such a high degree would be basically adding in carbohydrates or messing with the Randall cycle. And you don't really get that on carnivore, so that's why I haven't had a heart attack, or that's why I would assume that science is incorrect.
Well, VLDL is a natural product of the liver in order to deliver amino acids, simple sugars, fatty acids, mineral and vitamins to every cell of our body. And so I just think science is not actually accurate. It's manipulated in order to market a story so I can get a PhD and I can get fame and I can make a lot of money, and then people are going to think I'm really a good guy. And in fact, we question all science. Shouldn't we question all science here?
You're right. You're right.
You're very right. Blaise, you're right. I'm like, think again. It's when we quote. Even I love my good friend Bart Kay. I think he's awesome, but maybe even the metabolic pathways we've been taught are wrong.
No, you definitely could be right. There's a lot of things. I mean, when it comes to questioning the science, I've tried a lot of things when it comes to self-experimentation. So the whole not showering thing, I mean, that's really like questioning. I don't know if I say that's questioning the science per se, but it's questioning a lot of the science maybe of like the shampoo companies or of the conditioner companies or like basically all that stuff, right? So I'd say it's questioning the science of that. The not brushing the teeth, that's questioning the science of dentists, orthodontists, or anything related to cavity, tooth decay, that kind of thing. It's very questioning them. And perfectly fine teeth, by the way, basically over 1,000 days.
I just want to point out that questioning the science is the science.
Yeah, actually,
Okay? Because
that is
without questioning the science, we wouldn't have really science. This is where science is based. Okay? And when I teach medical students, what I like to teach them is to always ask why. If you always remember just that, always ask why. I mean, don't accept everything you're taught as is. Always ask why.
And I want to just throw it out there that ultimately we have to question everything. So when we say, well, this thing is right and this is wrong, well, maybe they're again, is everything just our perception and observation of what we measure and believe? But ultimately, we've sort of taken on this idea that we must accept and believe in some things in order to have a conversation about what is.
Yeah.
Right?
No, you're right. I mean, I think okay, this is going to be a little controversial, but this is part of my channel, at least as of recently, because I've been trying this because I had to try this actually. And it was really weird because I was cutting something out that I did my entire life, and I wasn't expecting to cut this out at all. But I said, I'm going to cut this out. I want to see if there's any effect. And you might see, Blaise, what are you talking about? There's something else that you're doing. Yeah, there is. I only did this sort of recently. I did this maybe, I'd say 5 or 6 months at this point. So this isn't necessarily too long. But it was the science, and once again, this is a very controversial one. It's the science of exercise. Now, people say, and I've experienced this my entire life, actually. People say like exercise is healthy. And I heard this one when I was talking to Elizabeth Bright once. I interviewed her and I had her on my channel and I talked to her. And I talked a little bit about exercise, and she said one thing that was very, very interesting, and it sort of stuck with me. And I looked at that and I went, you know, this is really interesting. I'm kind of curious to see if there's an effect on me. So she said, I don't think necessarily exercise is healthy per se. I think it's just the body adapting to the environment that it needs to survive in. And then when she said that line, I was like, that got me curious. And it got me curious into the science behind exercise. Like, is there a science? Like, how's that sort of science on muscle, on tissue remodeling work? And then afterwards, it also got me curious on, well, is that tissue remodeling, or in this case, at that time, is tissue remodeling of that kind even healthy in the first place? So I said, you know what? I'm just going to go at it. I'm going to stop exercising completely. I'm going to stop exercising for a month, actually. At that time, I did it for a month. And I said, okay, no exercise 1 month. I'm going to afterwards exercise, and let's see what level I can exercise at. Now, I am full carnivore once again, so I have far less muscle decay or I don't have muscle atrophy basically as much because I'm carnivore. When you're carnivore, your muscle atrophy level, I think, is incredibly low. That has to do related to insulin. Although, once again, science, I don't necessarily know is fully true. Yeah.
Not true.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. I don't know if it's necessarily true or not true, but what I will say is I tried it and I said, you know what? I'm just going to stop exercising. Let's see what happens. And I went back to exercising after 1 month. I tried to do my regular routine that I usually did, which was about, at that time, 25 pull-ups, 23 to 25 pull-ups every single day. I would do squats, weighted, although I don't necessarily think a lot of this is too healthy, honestly. The squats that are weighted anyways, I don't think that's too healthy. I don't think adding body weight is super good. And I said, let's see if I could do the exact same thing. I went back to that and I did the exact same thing after 1 month of not exercising. And that was sort of interesting to me because I said, like, okay, clearly my body's able to adapt very quickly. Now I'm just going to stop exercising completely. And actually, how you see me right now, I have not exercised in 4 months, I would say, at this point. Yeah, I'd probably say 4
What
months. I just
animal-
stopped completely.
What animal exercises?
That's a very good question. I'm not aware of any one of them exercising. I am aware of them hunting or playing, but I am aware of them which involve muscle movement, but not actual lifting weights.
So what do you do? I mean, if you're sitting doing YouTube all day, any of us, now in general, you got to set something up. You got to do some work to do all of this stuff, and ultimately, you get up and you prepare food. You go to the market or you go do your hunting and gathering. Is that motion? Yes. Is that movement? I had muscle atrophy one time in my life. And the best thing that ever happened to me, I broke a leg when I was 19. My leg was casted for 3 months. That was a good thing happened. And it was called atrophy. It's called lack of use. So now I'm sitting here. I'm holding, are my muscles doing nothing?
Well, your hands or your arms aren't. They don't look like they are because they're moving. So I'd probably say no.
Well, they're not moving.
Well, I mean, you're when you were making the hand gestures before.
But I'm not moving.
You're holding your arms up.
Working.
Yeah, now they're not moving.
But are they working?
Yes.
Are you putting work? Yeah, they require work, or at least to stay in this state. Unless you keep them in a cast, I would say they require work.
Well, right. So do you lay and not move when you sleep all night?
I hope I don't, but no, I don't think I do.
We move. You ever seen pictures of people sleeping? And so ultimately my sense is, so 5 causes of disease, plant sugars, plant antigens, plant chemicals, fermentation of plants in the gut, in the body, and exercise. Leading cause of most damage and disease to the human body. I use excessive exercise, but I mean, how many people just walk around the house and trip and fall or fall off a curb, right? And so ultimately, this concept of exercising and lifting weights, how many people have been known to lift weights? I mean, I've hurt my shoulder or my knees doing things, lifting weights and exercise. I used to play racquetball and squash. Many a times I disjointed my shoulder or something like that, right? Teddy, what does Teddy say? You highlighted.
Teddy, we're designed to be active, but society today forces passivity from us. Exercise and movement is absolutely necessary for our health.
Well, movement, my parents never exercised. They always had active bodies and lives, and they lived to 94. And so we really proven normal human activity versus exercise?
Yeah, that's a very, very good point, actually.
I mean, if we're going to do a prospective, double-blind, placebo-controlled study, but we do like to look good, don't we? So we lift some weights, we do some things. Now that I'm 90, right.
Oh, we lost Blaise.
No. Wait, what's happening?
He's coming back.
He is.
Hold on. Wait, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, we can totally hear you.
You're here.
Okay.
So, Dr. Kiltz, you just mentioned something, and even the comments. I think movement is essential. Definitely. When we compare our lives to a few hundred, even, or a few thousand years ago, where we were much more active, we live a life that is totally sedentary by most people. So sometimes we need to increase our activities to a certain degree, and doesn't mean you have to go and spend 5 hours a day in the gym, but basically we need to move probably more than we are used to.
Well,
and whenever I see someone, I always go back to this example. I live in Florida. And trust me, on a summer day, that guy doing the roof of the house is exercising everything he needs. I'm not going to ask that guy to go and do more exercise. Whereas someone that's sitting all day on a job and driving to the job and going home and sitting, they need to move more. So, like you mentioned, exercise might be a cause of disease, but the movement is essential.
Although our stand-up desk, my stand-up desk is my work desk. That's how I work. And
I'm getting one of those, by the way.
Yeah, and currently we're just kind of working on our new studio, and we have our stand-up part of it working on it right now. But it is get up and out and move. You're right. Go for a walk. You don't have to do when we use the word exercise, it's movement, as you said. That's really the most important part. But if you are in the studio, pottery, painting, you're doing things, you're inspired by life. I think that's one of the most important things we do is be productive. And many of us have lost our artistic production in life. And even podcasting and YouTubing, you're being productive, right? So a little bit is your mindset, what you put in the mind and the mouth, and how you move your body. So I still just, we're this idea when you're working in your studio all day, right? And you're inspired by it. Do you have to get up and go for a walk down the street? You don't have to. We don't know that, right? I just want us to sort of like question everything and not accept anything, right? And just right, Blaise, just kind of like moving, but we're not. But the world of desk work is completely out of our evolutionary style, right?
It's like looking at a young Dr. Kiltz here.
I would assume that we didn't do too much desk work, but I mean,
well, but that's what's happened. So a stand-up desk is one big change, but in an environment where you're walking around, you're communicating, you're working, you're building, you're doing so much. That's our inspiration. I think when the mind is inspired to change and grow and create, and you're 25?
25 currently, recently turned 25. So I still feel like 24. Actually, I feel like I'm 16 years old.
I'm temporarily 69.
Yeah.
Right? I'm temporarily 69 in one, not even a month yet. Plus, I'm starting 70 years. And let me tell you, Blaise, you feel like you're 19 on carnivore and in this crazy, amazing community, right? But is the science a distraction?
You could be very, very right. I personally think there's a lot of science that's a distraction. Or at the very least, it's misleading. I want to
like hugely. What if all the science is wrong? Remember, science is theoretical.
Yes. Okay. Oh man, you got me on a topic which is weird now, because that was actually the plan of my next video. But what you said right there, basically, which is like all this is theoretical and stuff. I'm making this video why life is, or I think anyways, life is a simulation. And I know it's going to sound crazy at first, but in terms of, there's this one specific concept which I think is near irrefutable, at least in the physics sort of realm. And it's this thing of, it's a superposition problem where everything is in a state of superposition. But the problem is that if everything is in a state of superposition, that means that it only exists if something views it, or if it's being viewed. Which, in my view, from like a computer sort of realm, this is basically like rendering a game. where when you throw a player into the instance, or you throw a player into this specific area, you only render what they can see. You don't render it for the entire rest of it. So it's weird. But I'm not going to go too much detail into that. But
okay, remember, everything is what you think it is. And everyone has a different thought. And so your thought, remember, we accept the physics, science, the math, science. You must have some acceptance of the languages so we all agree on some basic premise. But that doesn't mean it's true. It's only true to our belief system in order for us to work in the realm we work in. I mean, it's the matrix, essentially.
Yeah.
We're living in our own minds. And so let's assume one is one. Correct?
I would assume so. I would hope so, but I could be wrong.
But we have to make some acceptance and assumptions so we agree upon something that makes it true.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's true to a fly. Does it?
I don't think it is.
Right. So in essence, our science, again, all of our science stuff, remember, is science absolute, or is science a theoretical, acceptable? We've proven it as best we can, but you can never prove it 100%.
Exactly. Yes, yes, thank you. That's actually sort of the main point that I want to get at. I don't think you could prove it 100%. So that's the crux, I guess you could call it.
Right. So we're accepting of, I mean, can a vegan in and of themselves live a long, healthy life?
Potentially, actually, yes.
The answer is 100% yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And can a carnivore live a short, unhappy life?
Most certainly.
Right? So we're making some premises on theory, but in general, for a human being, would you say that a plant-based diet is the best life for a human, or a animal-based diet?
I would say an animal-based diet, or at least from my N of one experience, from my personal experience, I would say animal-based, because I've tried plant-based before. It didn't work. So I now try animal, and it makes me feel better. That's basically the only reason.
Would you say the majority of the human beings of the world would agree with you?
I would say the carnivore community would. I don't know if I'd say that the rest of them would agree with me mentally, but would their bodies agree with me? Maybe.
Well, when we say that, my point is agreement is a word thought experiment, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things here. But let's see, what does CB Carmack have to say?
Let's see. What does CB Carmack have to say? And we got one question for Blaise after this. Oops. Okay. I'm back to doing body weight workouts now. I do feel I lost a good bit of muscle. I was metabolically sick, though. Had to start with diet. I was into bodybuilding in my 20s and 30s. That's what he says.
Well, okay, leave it there.
Yeah, I'm leaving it here.
So do you lose muscle, or you atrophy muscle? Remember, how many bodybuilders stay the same size they are for their entire life?
0.
Right.
0.
Because of atrophy and hypertrophy. Muscles, you don't lose muscle mass because the muscles hypertrophy or they atrophy. That's normal, is it not?
Yes.
Right?
I think that's how the sciences work. Yeah.
You have to have big muscles in order to walk and move and drink and eat and participate in life?
With our current skeleton, I would say yes, but do you need them?
No, you do not have to have big muscles.
Not big muscles for our context, no.
Right. So you don't have to, you have to, again, we're so my bigger muscles don't mean I function better in my standard living. But if I want to go to the gym and lift some muscles and show off a little bit, I've got the muscles build in order to lift the heavier weights.
Yes.
But does it require that in order to cook and clean and eat and bathe and normal production of life in general?
Yes. No.
No.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
No.
Like
No.
what I meant by that previous thing of big muscles, what I meant was, like, if I were to have the skeleton of a mouse, then the amount of muscle that I would need would be much less in comparison. But I have the skeleton of a human being, so I need more.
Right. But in general, I think in our sedentary lifestyles, doing some resistance work, but it's helpful. But a lot of it is if you just do the natural work and you don't use the robots, we're probably a lot better, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. I like that thing that you said about inspiration of the mind, by the way. That's just a real quick thing. It's all about basically inspiring the mind. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, that is, I mean, why do we have books and paintings and poetry and music? I mean, that's human inspiration, right? And that's what we're really here to do, is be more inspired by our human evolution of creativity. I mean, painted on walls. Someone saw a painting on a wall and inspired them for something, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's basically one of the biggest things. In my opinion, that's my biggest thing, because I'm all about some sort of inspiration.
I don't know that people could see our new studio. And I don't know which camera we're on. We got several cameras and stuff like that, but we're working on our new podcast studio. We're having fun with this. Malcolm has been really working hard to kind of get it all rigged up. We're having fun with this. We gotta have fun. We got Jenny Minich on Friday. We got Scott
Berg
Friday in this studio.
No, virtual.
This studio. In-house studio. We got some other people. We're going to be doing some studio stuff. Maybe we get Dr. Vasquez coming on Friday, so we got in-house podcasting there. It's this podcasting is sharing ideas that and maybe Dr. Nelson could comment about this. And we had Mitch on. We were on with Mitch yesterday.
Yes.
And Nelson, maybe you tell us all a little bit about the visit with Mitch yesterday, Dr. Nelson.
We had a great time. I got there just a few minutes before we started. So we kind of went right away, and then I showed you all what I brought to him, and then we had a nice conversation afterwards. He is working hard on getting better. He is getting better. I can tell you because I was there a few weeks ago, right? And you were just lifting your hands, right? You know, for him was hard to even keep the hand like this, but now he's able to raise his arm completely.
This is great.
He's able to walk. He's able to stand. So yeah, he's improving and in good spirits, I think. And his daughter was with him all last week. His son is going to be this week with him. He's getting a lot of support as well. So he's going to be eating Kiltz's ice cream soon.
Wonderful. Mark Sapien says, speaking of evolution, our dentition indicates that we are designed to be omnivores. So why are plants so toxic for us? I don't know what dentition means.
Well, that's teeth.
Oh, thank you.
So that's a good one. And I was walking down the street in Sarasota the other day, and there were a bunch of plants kind of hanging out over the sidewalk. And Geronimo was my horse a number of years ago, and I loved riding Geronimo. But no matter what, when you were riding on the trail, Geronimo is always biting and eating the vegetation. And I'm thinking, how often do you guys walk down the street and grab some plants and start eating them as you're walking down the street?
You don't.
You don't, right? So or just, you're rolling around the grass and you start eating the grass. You don't. And so, in fact, we've been domesticated, and we've been either boxed or plated the domesticated grass and grains that we have been taught to eat. But in fact, you're not walking down the trail and eating a bunch of what's on the trail, are we?
No.
No. You might die. You might eat something that will kill you.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that we know that.
We also have the gastric pH of vultures.
Lions, vultures.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So extremely, extremely low.
And so we're currently consuming the less toxic plants that have been produced and plated for us. It's kind of like feeding a cow or a sheep or a pig. If you feed a lion or a wolf plants, they become domesticated dogs and cats. You, my friends, are simply domesticated dogs and cats that were once wolves and lions.
I love that. We have one question for Blaise.
All right. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not the only one experiencing this vanishing thing. I see my camera turning off over and over. I don't know.
I kicked myself out. Sorry. Blaise, what are you studying in college and why? That
was
the why.
So currently I study biochemistry. So I'm going into, microbiome. Currently the classes I'm taking right now are microbiogenetics and physics are the last class that I have to take. But yeah, I'm definitely in the biology science, very heavy into that. And once again, even me studying that supposedly, that doesn't necessarily mean I believe all of it. I'm pretty skeptical on the science of everything, actually.
But in order to be accepted into the club, the class, you have to pass the test of the questions they ask you, right?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
What is it you want? Do you have any particular professional goals or what you want to do in life? I don't know.
Potentially, the hope anyways is probably go along the lines of the doctor route. That's the hope anyways. Thank you again for the reference letter. But other than that, I'm not entirely. I would probably say that's like that would be the biggest one, if anything. I definitely do I enjoy YouTube. I definitely get a lot of mental stimulation out of YouTube, watching other YouTube videos, just like getting ideas from other people, because a lot of other creators have some really interesting ideas sometimes. It might not always be carnivore based, right? It'll be the whole, hey, I think this showering is just not supposed to happen, right? And I'm like, hey, that's sort of cool. Somebody else out there has that kind of video, right? But anything, just interesting new ideas. That really, I like that. I like that off of YouTube a lot. Yeah, that's another one.
Well, you have more access to knowledge on this devices than we had in medical school way back when, because you had to be accepted in order to get the knowledge. Now you have to be accepted in order to get the license.
Yeah.
Which is the same back then too, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point actually.
Oh, and so plants can't run and hide, and basically they've made toxins in order to prevent you or any other herbivore from eating it. That's the answer for Mark, by the way. It's really simple. No,
Yeah.
and cows and sheep, will they just lay down and say, "Yeah, eat me," or are they going to fight or run?
They're probably gonna kick you if you try.
Yeah.
Yes. Whenever we're walking, we see cows like wherever we're walking. I'm like, stay away from the back legs of near that fence. But look at them, but you could stay like far enough to not get kicked.
Yes, especially horses. Oh my God! Please do not stand. Anybody, please do not stand behind horses. I have heard so many horror stories of people losing their ability to move completely because they get kicked by a horse so hard. Please, oh my God.
Well, I guess you got a question. What were the injuries back when we did not have cars? I mean, how many people died, maimed in the horse world?
Ooh,
lots.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd probably say a lot because I can see a lot of accidents happening.
I switched from a horse to an airplane. My brain could control it now, not as much with the horse.
Dr. Kiltz, we're at an hour, so I just want to give everyone one more last chance to put hashtag Blaise in for a chance to win a t-shirt, a Kiltz Health or Kiltz Mighty Tribe t-shirt. So you got hashtag Blaise. Someone really wanted to verify how long it's been since you brushed your teeth.
Okay. So the way I sequence this is from 2020 because this all started at 2020.
Okay.
So it was at 2020 or the end of 2020 where I ended up not showering. It was 2022 or 2021 where I ended up not brushing my teeth. So it's probably been at least 3 or 4 years, I would say, of not brushing my teeth. So not 5 years, but over 1,000 days at the very least.
When was the toothbrush invented?
Probably not very long ago.
I'm going to ask AI right now.
Procter and Gamble?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably Procter and Gamble. There's a really good chance. I know. There is only one instance that I'm aware of a tooth or some form of toothbrush being used, and that was in the medieval ages where they would chew sticks for some reason.
That's what it says here in AI. They're chewing sticks in 3000 BC.
Yeah, but otherwise, I didn't even know it was 3000 BC. But otherwise, I would not know the last time like an actual toothbrush was bristles. That's
1938 by DuPont.
There we go.
And isn't 3,000 years ago sort of massive evolution for humans anyway? But I guess you'd look at other animals like chimpanzees and but do they use a stick to clean their teeth?
No,
they don't. From what I'm aware of, I don't think they use anything at all.
I sometimes see my sister-in-law brushing her dog's teeth, and I get a kick out of it every time.
That's actually
now it is. I think it's very interesting, and all joking aside, this is not a joke. People, strict carnivores, I know they will have noticed decrease in all these odors, right? Whether it's breath or poop or body odor. I mean, it's the moment you start eating plants, that comes back.
Yeah.
Why?
Because, you brought up the really good point. Well, fermentation, basically.
It's only fermentation.
And it leaking through I guess not only leaking through the skin, but also leaking through the mouth because it comes back as gas, basically. So it's a really interesting point. I think the mouth part really got me. That's a really interesting one. I like that.
If you look at James Henry Salisbury's work, I mean, the fermentation in the gut, the microbes, do they just stay in the gut, or do they go up the esophagus, upper, lower, out onto the skin, all over your body. I mean, they're everywhere.
Yeah, they are. That's a really important part.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Let's do this giveaway here. Who's winning today? Oh no, the tensions are high. Who's getting the t-shirt today? Oh wow, DJ Magic Man, send me an email. You got my email? Send it over to me.
At
drkiltz.com. By the way, anyone can email me if you want to.
Alia at drkiltz.com. If you want to be on with us, Alia at drkiltz.com. If you want to invite us to be on with you, Alia at drkiltz.com. If you have a question for us, Alia at drkiltz.com. And if you want
a letter of recommendation, Alia at drkiltz.com.
And don't forget, today's program is sponsored by Kiltz Health.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just answer this one last question because people can't believe that you don't brush your teeth. What about food particles in the gum line, tartar, calculus buildup? Have you seen a dentist? Have you had dental exams?
Well, sometimes you need to use something like this.
Yeah, basically, I think the only thing I keep around with me is literally exactly what you just showed right there. This is the only thing that I use. But other than that, when it comes to, I don't use any sort of no bristles, no toothpaste. I just use that, and I use that, and I mean, honestly, if my teeth formed correctly when I was younger and I didn't have malocclusion, I might not even have that problem. But because I think it's related to that. There's like a whole that's a long conversation for another time. But
yeah,
well, we'll get on carnivore conversations with Kiltz and many other things more that keep sharing what you're doing, our brother.
Yeah. No,
I'm
definitely.
trying to get him for an in-person podcast.
I think I can come to that. I mean, basically, it's as long as it isn't during my exams, and even if it is during my exams, I just kind of want to tell them like, hey, can I, please let me take the exam later. Right?
We'll figure out a time, Blaise.
Yeah, that would be nice.
All right. Well, we're like 6 minutes over.
Kiltz Mighty Tribe tonight, 5:30 p.m.
Lynn DeVokie is going to be talking to us. Lynn DeVokie. Lynn from Healing Humanity. We're going to talk about histamine and histamine buckets and all sorts of stuff like that.
All right.
All right, everybody.
Have a good day, everybody.
Goodbye.
See ya.
We hope to see you.